Hi there. Bradley here with another, hopefully interesting, perhaps not too long diatribe. A little hard to focus because I got a kind of a fairly bad headache on my left side right now. Don't know why. But I had a really good, though we were kind of limited on time. Sundays, I often spend with my friend Chris, who's also interested in esoteric subjects, and we usually have an interesting discussion and watch some interesting vids, listen to stuff. Kind of a free-form discussion get together. Pretty fun. We had limited time today, but at the end came to some interesting conclusions. Stuff we've thought about and talked about before, but kind of came out in a nicely compact and simple and I think understandable way. So I had the thought of doing a video blog about it. Of course, my energy mostly departed once I got home, but I'm going to do it anyway. Who knows? Maybe this headache is the forces of evil attempting to, get me to not do this video. Unlikely. Okay, this is the topic of something I've been meaning to talk about for a while anyway, and it is definitely one of the things I rant about to people I know when I get the chance, because it's just certainly does get me going. And it's basically I like the title. I'm calling this what is it? The New Age, the Delayed New Age, Resources in the Economy. The Delayed New Age is kind of the overall subject. Resources in the economy are the practical sub-subjects which make it up. Basically, the point is this. I'm kind of trying to elaborate here, but it can be described pretty simply. For quite a while now, I don't know the exact amount of time, but since the 50s at least, but probably even before that, we have departed from the first age, which would really be called the age. Age is defined by a limitation. And the limitation is resources. Resources are basically the natural, the raw materials that we can get from the universe, from nature, from the earth. And in the first age, resources were limited, simply because humans, there weren't that many humans, and our knowledge and general power as a civilization were much less than they are now. During this time, basically, you can look at the economy and the means of exchange is a clue for what age you're in and everything we're talking about here. In the first age, of course, the earliest methods of exchange was barter. Pure material goods for other pure material goods, or services for goods or goods for services. But the primary one being goods, of course, because we're talking about food. If you don't have food, you die. So gradually, we progress through this age, and there are the sub-ages that they like to talk about, the Stone Age, this and that, which are basically talking about technology. This is, I guess, in terms of, these are economic ages, I guess. I'm just doing this all on the fly. It also kind of jives with what I've been reading about, which they talk about how our current civilization is they call it a level 0 civilization, I guess. And level 1 is, I think, going out into near space and all that. And that's cool too. But come to think of it, I was kind of conflating that with this. But thinking about it, this is really more about, again, economy. But the funny thing is, in a way, it's the most fundamental, I think, because the other ones are about, tech, like, we have the solar age, the nuclear age, blah, blah, blah. That's fine. Those are a way of. I mean, ages are really just a way of breaking things up. You can break them up religiously, technologically, whatever. But what's interesting is this one is actually, I think, is kind of the well, actually, no. There's another one of my theories, which I call the multi-level evolution theory, which is actually, I guess, the most fundamental. It's even before this one, but this would be the next most fundamental. I'll have to discuss the economic one sometime. That'll definitely kill a few installments. So the resource age, right? So basically, we've been limited by our resources, and we've gone through many sub ages where our knowledge, technological and otherwise, and our power as a civilization has increased. And with each increase, we've had a massive increase in the amount of available resources because, and unlike what some people would say, that I'm not just talking about the amount of stuff we can dig out of the ground, though of course that that helps, but I guess what a lot of people don't seem to understand is the more knowledge we have, the more resources we have, because we learn to use the existing resources in more sophisticated ways, in different ways. We learn to transform one resource into another. And of course, we technically have unlimited resources because if we have the resources to get into interplanetary, very local space just off of the Earth, there are huge amounts, unlimited amounts, by anybody's perspective, of asteroids. And I always thought this was kind of a miracle, but asteroids. I used to think, how can that be? Asteroids are probably just made of some useless stuff or whatever. But the fact is, most asteroids are made out of useful stuff. They're made out of nickel iron by and large. So you have these, and probably lots of trace amounts of rare earths, uranium, whatever. Who knows? We haven't really done a lot of work on that. But we know enough to know that most asteroids are made out of highly useful industrial metals, just as a default. So there are unlimited amounts of highly useful industrial resources just floating around the solar system. And the fact is, if we can gather enough energy from the sun or from power sources like nuclear, which have really only been barely scratched as far as their potential goes, again, there's unlimited resources. I'm sort of jumping ahead, but that's our current state. Like to jump ahead is for the last, I think as I was saying to my friend Chris there, I think this is a pretty good way of imagining it. I don't know if this is actually completely correct, but I think on some level people realize this, say in the 50s and 60s, when that classic age of people that we love to mock in, shows and cartoons and parodies. Because that's when people were saying, everyone will have a rocket ship, everyone will have a flying car, you'll be able to transit to the moon, da da da. I think it's on some level I can expect. Again, I might not be right, but I like the idea that people unconsciously sensed that this was it. Man had enough knowledge and power that we could do anything, and I think in a way you kind of saw that, right? I mean, it kind of in the '60s, the flowering of that was we put a man on the freaking moon. I mean, what other freaking kind of accomplishment do you want? We actually sent a living human. He traveled in a ship all the way to the freaking moon, got onto it, walked around on it, took some samples, got back in his ship, came all the way back to Earth successfully. I mean, that is an amazing feat for when you consider that. I mean, come on. Like, what is it? I don't think we had planes until the on a general scale until like the 1920s, wasn't it? Like the Wright brothers. I don't remember, but it wasn't that long. It was definitely less than 100 years before that. Considering that man had spent thousands of years scratching in the dirt attempting to get enough food to not starve to death that winter. And now we put a man on the freaking moon, and it didn't even break the bank. I mean, it was expensive, but we learned all kinds of stuff from it. So on and so on. So, at least from that point, as far as I'm concerned, like say put it at that level. I mean, that's still 40 or so years ago. We have at this moment, right now in 2010, I say with absolute certainty, we have effectively unlimited resources. If we wanted to feed and house and take care of every human on Earth, we have the power to do so. you know, it's